Hello lovely listeners, welcome to the 𝘴𝘮 Coaching Podcast, where we talk all things health and fitness, emotional and mental health, career chats, travelling, just life in general to be honest, the good, the bad, the ugly and absolutely everything in between. This podcast serves as a safe space for myself, for the lovely guests that I'll have on here and for you guys listening to be raw and real, to be open, vulnerable and transparent. Absolutely no filter. With that in mind, let's get stuck in. Hello everyone and welcome back to the 𝘴𝘮 Coaching Podcast. As you can tell, I have a little bit of a husky voice, so bear with me. Today we have the lovely Liz. Level up with Liz.
Hi, how are you? I'm Liz from Level Up with Liz.
Yeah.
I'm a somatic trauma therapist, psychic medium and Reiki master and teacher. And yin yoga teacher as well.
She does a lot. And it's all related to nervous system work, which obviously we know I'm super interested in, especially from like the gut-brain axis standpoint. Everything to do with holistic health, we know, makes me tick, okay? It's what got me into this industry and this job to begin with, to be honest, less so the PT side of things. So excited to have you on and just talk all things, I guess, the all-encompassing term would be trauma-related, right? So it's all to do with the impact of chronic stress and trauma, be it micro or major, on your nervous system and the impact that has on you as an adult, especially when it happens as a kid, all those things. So we'll get stuck in. So no better place, as always, I think, to get stuck in to any topic for all my guests that I have on is talking about our own unique stories, because I think it's really revealing and it shows, I think, why people end up in the careers that they end up eventually, whether or not that's from the get-go. Like I obviously was in corporate before, which is part of my journey.
Me too.
But really, why is that always the case, honestly?
Corporate kills.
I was only in there for a hot minute, like 4 months.
Oh, really? Jesus, I done a sentence.
A sentence, like how many years?
Like 10, 15 years, I think I was in corporate, yeah.
Okay, now I want to talk about this. All right, okay, you know what? I'm going to hand you the literal mic.
Yeah,
So tell me your story, everything.
Okay, so...
That's a little bit broad.
Yeah, I was always a very highly sensitive person when I was growing up. Really sensitive to energy, really sensitive to emotions, other people around me. I always remember crying in school and wondering what was wrong with me, all of that. And as I started to get older, I realised that I needed to, you know, kind of push down my emotions, that it wasn't acceptable to be highly emotional and, yeah, just put on all these different masks and layers to be and feel accepted. So this progressed throughout my life. I lived in England when I was younger and moved over to Ireland when I was 11. I was in London.
I was in Windsor.
Were you?
Yeah.
So strange.
So we actually don't know each other that well. We're finding out so much already. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I arrived back to Ireland at age 11, I had like a thick English accent, like proper Cockney accent, and obviously I was common as muck now. So obviously when you're in Ireland with an English accent, like
absolutely bet out of you.
Yes, it was bet
out of my brothers anyway.
Yeah.
Me less so.
Yeah, so like within, I'd say 8 months, I had like this Irish accent, and you know, I had just completely morphed into an acceptable way of being, like to kind of be, I suppose, accepted by the tribe in Ireland. Like, so yeah, it's all very much tribal stuff, being accepted, feeling grounded, feeling loved and safety with your support network. And a lot of the time we can kind of put masks on to survive this experience. So that was basically what I was doing throughout my life. And then obviously started to drink, go out more, and it was all great crack and great fun for a few years. And then it got to a point where I suppose just a lot of anxiety started coming up, and I just wasn't enjoying myself anymore, you know. I was like, no, I don't even want to be here. What am I doing here? Yeah. And I was in a corporate job as well, and I remember just thinking, like, what is life? Like, life has to be more than this, you know. Ready to just throw the desk, you know, get underneath the desk, throw it up, jump on top of a printer and say, here, everyone is mad. Can we just, like, what is society? What is this craziness? So I decided, actually I went through a heartbreak then, and I decided to go for Reiki.
It was a pivotal heartbreak, changes everyone's life.
Yes, forever. So that was around 25, I think, and yeah, I just went for regular sessions for Reiki, and I was like so interested in energy work. And then actually at the time my mum was doing energy work as well. She only done her Reiki level 1, and I remember her practicing on me, and she hadn't even touched my head, right? Say that's my head. And it was like she put a key in the back of my head and just turned it. And I was like, ugh.
No, stop.
Yeah, I was like, what are you after doing to my head? She was like, I haven't even touched it. And honestly, after that, I was like, I need to just look into this. Obviously, it's calling me. I'm really drawn to it. And then I found out that there was a Reiki level 1 attunement happening, and I just went with it. Didn't even know anybody going. I was really nervous, really anxious about it. And I remember the teacher pulled me aside and she was like, you need to follow up with this. Like, there's something in this for you. So then I got attuned into Reiki 2 and the master level teacher. And then since then, it just has unfolded. Like, it's been an unbelievable journey, like crazy journey.
Oh, shit, I didn't realize any of this.
Yeah.
This is just as jaw-dropping for me as it is you guys.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
like I've been working with energy since, if I started getting that 25, I'm 37 now, so like 17 years, and it's just been a complete unraveling of all the different conditions that I've, you know, taken on from other people, obviously, because we take on our families and our societal expectations and structures and beliefs and all of this, our programming. So it's basically been years of just unprogramming and coming back to, you know, that soul essence, like that highly sensitive person, because, you know.
Funny you say that term, highly sensitive person, because
Yeah.
I only got familiar with that recently, and I would be the same.
Yeah.
Like, how is everyone not like this, though? And I also hate that I'm like this, but I also love that I'm like this.
Yeah, and the thing is, we
It's
are
freaking annoying, but also my superpower.
yeah, we are like this. This is our essence. Like, when we come into this earth, we are a fragment of soul in this physical body. I call this the meat suit, right?
The meat suit.
The meat suit. So
You can grow a big fat ass on that meat suit if you want to.
I'm working on it. I need your help with that.
I got you. I got you.
So yeah, we are like a fragment of soul, which is connected to everything, like which is nature, to each other, to animals. And through our conditioning and, you know, the societal expectations, we learn to desensitize and disconnect. And this is where we are living up in our heads. And phones are a huge, I suppose, distraction from the heart space, because the heart space holds the highest frequency or the highest vibration, you know, the highest energetic frequency. If we're not connected into the heart, we are living up in our head and we're disconnected from each other. And this is where maybe there's a lack of empathy when things are going on, and you know, people can't relate to other people because they're not living from the heart space. So you'll see, even like with the world events, there's so many tragedies that are happening to try and trigger us back into the heart space so that we can empathize. And
So wait, do you think this is a universal thing that's happening to try to force us back into it?
Well, grief is one of the lowest frequency vibrational emotions, right? And then if we are living in that, it allows us to crack open into the heart, and then with that we receive more light, and the light is universal source energy. So this is how more people are having their awakenings. This is where COVID happened. So many people had spiritual awakenings during COVID because they were cracked right open. And they were
everything stripped back to the core. Like,
this is it, and it's like
yourself.
giving us the space. I'm getting shivers here. This is giving us the space and allowing us to remember what is actually important to us. And obviously, corporate job, 9 to 5. It's hardly ever 9 to 5. You're working 60 hours a week most of the time in them, especially if you're working from home. And then, you know, it's very dehumanizing, because I remember being in the office and just going, like, nobody even talks to each other. Like, I could walk through the office for the whole day and you may only get 10 minutes of conversation with somebody throughout the whole day.
And it's not actually, and this is something I've always, from a young age, I just struggle with, like, inauthenticity. And it's like surface level small talk, and that has always sent me. I've never been able for it, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's not me like being like high and mighty. It's just genuinely I'm not able for anything other than real depth of communication. So it's like,
you must be a Scorpio, are you?
No, I'm Sagittarius.
I'm Scorpio.
I don't know why. I don't know if that's related, but like, yeah, that's corporate life for me. Like, I couldn't handle that. Like, you know, tiptoeing around people is like, just be completely like this is my Sagittariusness now. Be completely blunt to the point of my detriment. Like, it will be my downfall, double-edged sword. But yeah, it's just mad. So going back to the sensitive thing, right? Because I'm still intrigued by that. Do you think that the people, so like you're saying, because of the way we've been kind of, you know, we're conditioned to be using electronics all the time and all the world events going on, do you think that being a highly sensitive person is a good thing, or like...
Yes.
So, okay. And does that mean like we're en route to being awakened?
Yes.
Or at least awaken, maybe?
So a highly sensitive person is somebody who is like really open to a lot of the energy around them, and this actually ties into human design as well. I don't know if you know much about human
I've looked briefly into it just because one of our friends, I think Ailish does it. Do you know Ailish Doyle?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So she did it, so I was like, oh, what's this?
Yeah, so human design, in my human design, when I got that read, it says that I have a lot of open centers, right? And open centers means that you're processing a lot of information from your external environment and you're internalizing it. So this is where I was getting the highly sensitive, because every other person's emotion outside of myself, I was feeling that in my body through my human design and internalizing it and feeling that it was me, but not having the tools or the understanding that I was actually processing other people's trauma or other people's experiences and feeling and embodying their experience as my own, you know. And this kind of ties in with highly sensitive person as an energetic way. Like, we feel things really intensely, and obviously when you don't relate to being a highly sensitive person, you expect other people to just feel the way you do, but because we're all so uniquely different, it allows us to empathize a lot more. But also with that, we have everyone, I believe everybody that's on this planet has gifts, and as a highly sensitive person, your gift is to empathize and be highly sensitive and be able to, I suppose, relate to other people when in such a disconnected society and a disconnected life, you know. So I suppose with our gifts of being highly sensitive, we can channel that through and allow people to reconnect back to themselves, especially if they haven't, I suppose, categorise themselves as a highly sensitive person. You know, I don't like that word categorise really, because
No, but given your
label,
because labels do, I think, because I went through a phase just last year when I was obsessed with finding out what was wrong with me. So I went through this, like, you know, mad Google search, Google doctor life, trying to figure out everything under the sun, put a label to it, be like, that's the way I am, the way I am. And I think there's a phase in your life where that, like, label has its purpose. Like, it helps you understand a little bit of who you are to some extent, but then it's not over identifying with that, because I think what happened with me was then I thought I had all these different things going on, and then I was saying I am this, as opposed to, you know, something that I was even reading up on recently was like, the more you identify with something, like, it's not you as it's not your personality.
Exactly.
Right? And this is probably something you're really well versed in. It's like everything is a product of
your environment and your past experiences, and
but even beyond that, like your generational. This is like the pain body stuff I was explaining about earlier. It's like Eckhart Tolle in Power of Now, he talks about pain body and how we like carry our generational trauma with us to this day. And it's like, sometimes I feel that, like, when I get like triggered by something, that like some people might be like, that's a ridiculous reaction to that, but it's like actually not something that
it's like your baseline response to the stressor that you have is different because of your life experiences and I suppose how you respond to the stresses in your past experiences. So your baseline may be here. If you have, just say you've had trauma or whatever, your baseline response is here, and then a normal person's, like a different person's baseline response to stress will be here. So if a stressful environment comes at you from here, your reaction is going to be so much more higher than the other person who isn't experiencing that much stress.
They didn't have the same experience before.
So someone who's like snaps the lid and goes crazy or has a really angry response, a lot of people just say, oh, he's so angry, or he's really short, or he's really, you know, all these personality traits, but really their nervous system responses to an experience that they're having, you know. So like, I'll give an example, like a dog barking in the distance when someone is trying to go asleep. Like, person A may be able to go asleep straight away. The other person who's under a high amount of stress, like chronic stress, and their nervous system is in a state of hyperarousal, they can really find that irritating, because
that was me. I was person B for a long time.
It's like our nervous system is so hyper aroused to staying, because our nervous system is always looking for safety and love, and it's scanning our environment each time for safety and love. And if it doesn't perceive an environment or a person as safe or the capacity to give love, then our nervous system internalizes that and it creates an experience in our reality through that. And that can be like a protection mechanism where you're feeling it's safe to disconnect from other people because it's too dangerous to be around other people, you know. Yeah, it's overwhelming. Yeah, and then I suppose like going back to corporate, that's where I had my burnout experience. Like I actually had 2 experiences with burnout, and it was so interesting because the first time I experienced it, I didn't even know what was going on. Like I was having so many signals, so many alarm systems from my nervous system, and I just thought there was something wrong with me, you know. Like I was like, oh, I'll just take Nurofen because I have a migraine today. Oh, my shoulder is killing me. Why is it killing me? But it was actually like different parts of my body signaling to me that I needed to go back into a rest and digest state because I was in a hyper aroused state of nervous system dysregulation, and I didn't know that at the time. And obviously being at a screen for 40 hours, actually it was probably more, 50 hours a week, that stimulates your nervous system because our eyeballs are actually receiving energy through the computer, which stimulates our nervous system all the time. So you know when
I'm pretty bad for that still, even though I don't work in corporate, I still work like I am.
Yeah, so like this is
work in progress, guys.
This is why they say taking regular breaks and like away from your desk. I never done it because I was like, no, I need to get this done. But obviously allowing your nervous system to desensitize from like things that are going to like really stimulate us, like our phones and stuff like that.
Like,
yeah, it's even like,
it's like when you look at the light that comes out of it, it's so like strong.
Yeah.
You know, nighttime when like you're really sleepy and you're like, japers.
Yeah, this is it.
Like, and that's you all day, but you're just not, it's not that intense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And our nervous systems aren't designed to be stimulated 24/7, and that's basically what is happening to us. Like we are being stimulated by every single avenue. Like even if we look at the marketing is designed to stimulate us through our phones. Like you're walking down the road, even here in Bali, I remember when I came, like the bikes are so noisy, and I was like, my nervous system is really feeling this. Yeah, but then after a while, you just get into a state of, I suppose, regulation because you know that there's no immediate threat to these, you know.
I feel like for me, because like we were chatting about this before, that I would be, as I've said openly, I'm quite an anxious person, as I say, with Kate, highly functioning anxiety individual, as a joke. That's what we are basically. But I would have found, like you were saying, that person B example, like, you know, say, because I went to boarding school as well, so people snored and that stuff sent me. I'd be like so sensitive to it and like irritated by it, agitated by it. And it's only since having, I don't really like using this term because I know it scares people off, having like my, I guess, version of an awakening last year when I like took control of my life. I was sick and tired of, you know, basically I think what happened to me was similar to burnout.
Yeah.
Sick and tired of basically living in this, what, if you guys follow her, I'm not sure, the holistic psychologist, have you heard of her? Oh, absolute like goat of this world. She basically talks about a functional freeze, which is like when you experience, you know, some sort of stressor, right? And for me, whatever that was when I was a kid, you get stuck in that freeze state and you become functional in inverted commas, because you're really just like turning to something else just to kind of, you know, for me it was workaholism. So like I was like numb essentially, because I probably, as a highly sensitive person, it was like almost my coping mechanism was to just like turn off the switch.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like remember I was saying interoceptive awareness thing, it's like understanding your bodily sensations. Like only up until recently have I actually realized the amount of like energy stored in my body, and I think I need to do reiki with you because I think there's a lot more that I haven't been comfortable and ready to like access yet. But for me, like I know that I wasn't able to process it and understand it because I was quite an anxious person. So it was either I'd flip-flop between like really anxious or depressed. So like either really hyperactive, like really like my heart rate would uptick the moment something small happened or seemingly small happened to someone else. Or the alternative would happen, I'd be completely numb, disassociated, just go through the motions. And that was what was happening last year with corporate life. I just was like depressed. Yeah. Like actually depressed. The first time in my life, can say.
Yeah, and the same thing happened to me as well. There was points where I couldn't understand why I was feeling this way, why I was feeling anxious. I had money coming into the bank. I had like a good job on the outside. And I was going out at the weekends. People thought I was happy, but it was really just a face that I was putting on. And I suppose when you're in a job that isn't serving your purpose either, it expels more energy, and the more energy you're expelling through that process of being somewhere that you don't feel, you know, is your path, it can make things a lot more difficult for you, I suppose. And then obviously I felt depressed myself as well. And when I did go to the doctor, he wanted to give me medication, which I totally understand when people are put on medication for depression, but no questions were asked about like mindfulness or, you know, any sort of lifestyle changes or, you know, if I was stressed in work, okay, just take a couple of weeks off and then you can go back to work. But because I was under nervous system burnout, yeah, I needed much more than just a couple of weeks. And I remember returning back to work, looking at my screen and going, I can't do this. But thinking that there was something really wrong with me, that I couldn't function after taking a couple of weeks off because the doctor said, you know, I should be fine after a couple of weeks. But really, when you're trying to regulate your nervous system, it's a long process. And if it's in a state of hyper arousal, you are finding it difficult to sleep. Maybe your body is communicating to you with different alarm systems, like you're getting intense headaches, maybe pains in your shoulder.
I always have intense headaches.
Yeah, intense headaches, yeah.
20/20 vision.
Yeah, pain in your jaw as well. These were all like tightness. Even like loss of libido is a big one. And I actually think a lot of people don't speak about that because, you know, like it's a bit taboo, like speaking about sexual experience.
Irish Catholic Ireland.
Yeah.
Irish Catholic Ireland?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, so like loss of libido, because the autonomic nervous system looks after, so there's the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the rest and digest. And then I always get that mixed up.
Yeah, parasympathetic, rest and digest.
Yeah, and then the sympathetic nervous system is basically your fight and freeze and fawn, like the run stage where you're looking for safety. And when you are in a hyper-arousal state, basically your body will give you signals, like alarm signals, for you to come back into a state of regulation. But it doesn't have an off switch. We need to consciously go in and actually take particular steps to regulate ourselves. And that can be done by, you know, breath work, really cold showers in the morning to move the body into a state of regulation, mindfulness, gratitude, allowing the body to feel safe. So I know some people say, like, gratitude, oh, that just pisses me off. Even, like, I know I've heard people getting really triggered by it.
That would have been me before.
Yeah.
When you're so stuck in a negative mindset, you don't understand how people can be happy around you. You're like, they're just fucking, they're annoying.
Yeah.
Life's shit. And it's like, until you do it yourself and have that, like, breakthrough, you're like, fuck.
Yeah, but if you
get it now.
Yeah, if you think about it as well, like, gratitude is one of the highest vibrations. So, like, there's emotions that have vibrations, and that all relates to energy, right? So gratitude is one of the highest vibrations, and then like grief is one of the lowest, and sadness is a really low one as well. So if you're in that frequency where life is shit, and like this energetic frequency, life is shit, nothing works out for me, I'm in victim mentality, but you start to look for the good things in your life, even if it's one small thing that can bring you and lift your vibration into this, then you start to attract more good things to coming into your life. But if you're only focused on everything that's wrong, everything that's bad,
you look for the bad.
You look for the bad and you attract the bad, and the experiences roll on like that. It's like a domino effect. So this is where gratitude really supports you in lifting your frequency, but also all those other methods of the breath, because when we come on to the earth, the first thing we do is we breathe. And the last thing we do when we leave the earth is take a breath, you know? So it's a portal, it's a gateway to our intelligence, to source. That's which
so
is
cool. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, so it's like,
because I know how powerful breath work is, but I didn't think about its relevance to the start of our life and
the end. Yeah,
obviously it makes sense, but I just never really tied it off.
Yeah, and also when we're in a really anxious state or a really stressed state, we can tend to like hold our breath.
Accidentally stop breathing.
Yeah, and not realise. And also studies have been shown as well that when you're looking at your phone, actually test this later, and you're scrolling through your phone, you hold your breath. And I only like...
Don't say that, because I spend so much time with my work on my phone.
So like really start to notice that when the next time you're on your phone and you start to scroll and you're scrolling through things, notice, are you holding your breath? Because obviously you're not getting enough oxygen in the blood, and then the blood isn't able to alkalize as it should, and then that affects our whole bodily functions, like
Why do you think we hold our breath? Is it because it's an anxiety-inducing thing?
Yeah.
Because people used to call my phone, for me, my pacifier. Whenever I was anxious or I would shut down.
Yeah.
I'd just go straight to my phone and just scroll until like I'd stop feeling hyper aroused or like overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I actually tested myself with this as well. So I was really upset one of the days over something, and I went onto my phone and the upset just went away, and I was like, interesting, because I'm disconnecting from my emotions and I'm disconnecting from what I'm feeling. And then when I put the phone down, you know, obviously
confront it again.
I had to confront it again.
But it's not a solution.
It's not a solution at all. But also, if I'm disconnecting from myself like that, I'm also disconnecting from the people around me and my environment and what is really going on in reality, you know? So it's
Which is the reality.
Yeah.
It's the real world, not Instagram, TikTok.
Yes, exactly. So it's so interesting to notice this. And I also want to bring up the vagus nerve as well.
Love this stuff.
Yeah, so like...
can we just do like 2 hours of this? Like, I honestly don't think an hour is going to be enough. We'll have to do another one. Because vagus nerve work is honestly...
Oh, it's so amazing.
So cool.
Yeah, I discovered it in my yin yoga teacher training. Actually, before that, I always loved the nervous system and just finding out more about it. And the vagus nerve came up in my yoga teacher training last year. And I was like, I just need to follow this, you know, when you have that intuitive, like, so I was, obviously I'm psychic, so I was like tapping into.
Hold on. Didn't know that. This is the Reiki stuff.
Yeah.
God, this is so
well, we all are psychic as well, but it's just remembering the intuitive gifts that we have. And
I don't know if I'm psychic or if I'm hypervigilant.
I would say,
that is a distinction we need to make, because that is a product of trauma.
Yeah.
And psychic is not.
See,
do you get me?
When we start working with our nervous system and we start to release trauma, we get more access to the intelligence that is around us. So we are all interconnected, right, by this invisible web that we can't see, but it's through our nervous system, right? And then when we have a traumatic experience, that weighs down in our nervous system and it takes up space. So I look at it like a filter system. We have a water filter, that's our nervous system. And then the trauma is all these nasties that are stuck in so it blocks our connection, right? And it blocks the water from coming through. And water is emotion, is energy. So if we start to work on our trauma and we start to release the energy associated to that, so the emotional connection, which is really grieving whatever our trauma is and allowing that to be processed and releasing it through the body, but not necessarily having a conscious awareness about it, then we can allow for source to connect to us more. And source energy is universal life force. And then that's basically what we are a fragment of when we come into this earth. So like, this is why we love babies. Do you ever see a baby and they're like, everyone's like, wow.
Yeah.
Because
My mom's obsessed with babies.
Their source energy.
She's also mom.
Yeah, they're not conditioned like us. They don't come into the world. The trauma that they experience, obviously, is birth is a trauma. Coming through the vaginal canal is a huge trauma for them. But obviously...
and for us.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't had one yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, like epigenetics is passing on trauma into the next generation. So like, for example, vagal tone, right? Vagal tone is something that if you have high vagal tone, you can respond to stress a lot better. If you've low vagal tone, it's an indication that you have, IBS, and maybe you have acne, or there's different kind of bodily, I suppose, illnesses that are coming through. Yeah. Maybe it's anxiety, depression. So if we work with our vagal tone, this allows us to basically have a better response to stress and better bodily functions. So again, ways you can increase vagal tone is being in a community, looking after your health and wellness. A tribe, reducing stress, singing, chanting, humming, all that kind of stuff. But also, studies have shown that if a mother has low vagal tone and she's giving birth, say low vagal tone from stress, the child takes on low vagal tone, and this is where the child is like screaming, maybe has colic, not able to regulate itself because it's screaming, because it's trying to stimulate the vagus nerve to actually put it into a state of rest and digest and relaxation, because obviously the trauma that the mother's experienced has passed on through the genetics. So if we're breaking, like if going back to spiritual awakening is basically like awakening to the remembrance of your power within, because society has us locked into, I suppose, categories and disconnected from our communities, especially when we look at like COVID, not being able to connect with people through that. That's really severed us as a community.
I think the impact is yet to really be fully appreciated.
Yeah. And I know some people have said like, oh, COVID, I know a couple of people said this to me, COVID is over. Why are you stressing? Like, you know, we're done now.
The impact lives on in us.
Yeah, it you know, get back to your normal life. Stop worrying about it. But our nervous system has felt and responded to this stress. It's a global stressor that, you know, is probably going to change the evolution of humanity if we're not actually...
If we don't process it.
Yeah, processing it appropriately. And like, again, burnout has increased, like studies of burnout increased from May 2020, I think it is. So like, and that was, when was COVID? That was March 2020, was it?
Yeah, it started 2020.
So like, people are really starting to feel their nervous systems kind of check out at points, and maybe that looks like a lack of luster of what you used to love to do, not having the energy of going to the gym 6 times a week like you used to, just not enjoying the things that you used to do, or just feeling like you're out of your body, like you're not in your body. These are all signs that your nervous system needs to come back into a state of regulation, or that you've experienced trauma that maybe you need some support with. And there are so many different supports from... Don't know who that is.
Sorry.
There's so many different supports that can help us, that are available to us now. And yeah, I think more and more people are coming around to it and awakening to the importance of regulating themselves and their nervous system. Yeah.
So even just going back to the epigenetics like point you made, I don't know how else better to describe it. It brought up something that I was looking into myself, just based on my gut health research for my clients and for myself, from like a nutrition standpoint, and everything to do with like stress management, and it's all to do with nervous system work too, because the gut-brain axis, it's like, I can't remember the actual term, I think it's your enteric nervous system. Have you heard of that?
Autonomic and enteric as well, yeah.
Yeah, so your enteric is like what controls that. It's like a dual pathway, right, between your gut-brain axis, essentially. It's like your second brain, right? And going back to the epigenetics comment about when you're born, your vagal, or your parents, your mother's vagal tone.
Yeah, and fathers as well, because it's a product of both. So we are a product of...
Oh, yeah, because it's genetics, right?
Yeah,
DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I was like, how does that make sense? Because my point would be the gut health, so your gut microbiome, so the microbiota is passed on, like some of that from your mum is passed on to you and is obviously because your mum makes you, is passed on to you. So your gut microbiome, like baseline, is a large part of that would be attributed to your mother's. And if your mother's is one that was, you know, in dysbiosis, so this is when there's more pathogenic bacteria to probiotic bacteria. So when it's like there's an imbalance there, if that's, you know, which a lot of the case is, especially because of generational trauma, if that's the case, that's passed on to you, and this is how it's almost like constantly passed on to us. And that's what happens, is like, going back to the pain body thing, it's like that it's so much is out of our control, but equally it's our responsibility to break the patterns.
Yeah.
And that's like, it doesn't even mean, when I say responsibility, I don't mean being like, it's my fault. It's like taking responsibility to make the change.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just keeps living on with us. Because like that would have been the case, at least in my distinct family, like unique situation. Like we all have our own things that we're like passing on to our future children, and like I just know there's certain things that I want to break, just like equally there's probably things that you want to break for your potential children if you want to have them. I'm not sure. So
yeah,
some of those things that I think it's really interesting. I think the more they research and like come to accept, like you said, it's not something like nervous system regulation work wouldn't have been something, you know, in the past, especially from like the conventional, you know, medicinal practice. Like the first thing they look to is, you know, conventional medicine. I don't know how else better to describe it.
I think,
and instead of like looking to like, and this isn't like their fault, once again, it's passed on from like how ways of thinking. And I think it's cool, and I like them, like our generations, like doctors and stuff, I think are coming in with a little bit more of like a holistic approach to, you know, diagnoses and to treating the diagnoses as well, not just straightly hopping on the antidepressants, because I honestly do think even like interoceptive awareness point I was making earlier is that if you are responding to like overstimulation or not understanding the bodily sensations, because that's what it is. It's basically your understanding of your feelings, like your bodily sensations. If you are able to like learn how to heal that and become more balanced between like hypervigilance, which is what I would be, or on the other end of the spectrum, which is more like numb, underactive, that's when you can maybe look at kind of getting back to a baseline that is better to work from than like rock bottom and then become increasingly reliant on antidepressants. That's just my personal opinion on it, and it has been only strengthened from clients that have come to me with history with antidepressants, antibiotics as well. Like, you know, there's a time and place for them, but there's wreak havoc on your gut health as well. So it's just, there's always, I feel like there's other measures you can take first before straight up popping the pills, because I do think reliance happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I know definitely the body stores so much trauma, like, and awareness as well. And a lot of the time we don't have conscious awareness around a trauma that's in the body, but the body and the nervous system hold, I think it is 98% of all trauma. So if we don't have a conscious awareness around it, that doesn't mean that something hasn't happened or we haven't had an experience of trauma. It's just that maybe we've disconnected from that memory because, our nervous system and our body wants to keep us safe, and it's too traumatizing to remember. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes we can check out of these things, and then later on in life we may have a memory that crops up or something like that we're like, oh my God, where's that coming from? You know, or maybe we have no memories of our childhood, and that can be an indication of, you know, having some sort of a trauma that is locked in our nervous system. And then we experience our life through this trauma response. So basically it's like, say if you had an experience when you were 5 or something like that was traumatic, it could have been bullying. If you don't address that trauma and release the energy attached to that, your life experience, you will see everything through the lens of that bullying. So you'll be 100%. Looking at that through trying to protect yourself. So you may be like extra closed off, or, you know, just a little bit cautious around people because you don't feel safety or loved because of this previous experience that's already embedded into your nervous system.
Interestingly though, I feel like the other side of that, or maybe parallel to it, is like, I don't know how much you'd be interested in this, but it's like attachment styles and like, you know, trauma bonds and stuff, and like how based on things that happened to you when you're a kid, like inner child wounds, you almost seek that in your future, like romantic relationships, to like confirm that fear or to confirm that wound, or alternatively to like try heal it through a different, you know, relationship medium, even though it's not usually how it works. Like a lot of time it takes, you know, that realization that, okay, this isn't working, I need to just do the work internally, then practice it in a real life scenario later. Yeah. But yeah, what do you think about that? What do you think about attachment styles and all that jazz?
100%. So if you've grown up in an environment where, say, the father was giving away his power and the mother, or vice versa, you will look for that because that is what you know inherently as being safety and love for your nervous system. Because like I said before, the nervous system is always looking for safety and love and what it knows and what it's familiar to. So if you go into a relationship where that mirrors a relationship that you grew up in, that is because you are trying to keep yourself safe and loved. But also you can awaken to the remembrance of maybe the power that has been given away. So say, for example, I always use this example, life is always trying to remind us and initiate us into a remembrance of our power. And if, say, in generations past, women have given away their power, and in relationships that you know that are familiar to you have given away your power, life will give you these basically scenarios where maybe you've had a relationship where you're giving away your power, and then you realize, actually, I'm just repeating the generational patterns here. And then you realize, I'm a cycle breaker. I'm actually, you know, if you come out of that relationship, you realize, I'm actually empowering myself because this is the awakening, this is the remembrance, this is, you know, breaking the generational patterns or traumas, or because there's patterns in everything. There's patterns in nature, and we are nature. So we create our own patterns as well. And that carries on through the lineage, you know. So it's so interesting to even observe like different families and, you know, the dreams of the father or the mother. And then you'll see that the daughter may have the dream, you know, the same dream or something similar, or try and carry out something similar. And maybe the mother wanted to do that, but she didn't get that far, you know, or she didn't have the belief in herself because of maybe she didn't have access to nervous system work, or, you know.
That's the thing, it's access. We have to remind ourselves of
Yeah.
that. Like, it wasn't a thing really then.
This is it as well. Like, there's no blame with the generational trauma and stuff like that, because they never had access to what we have access to. There was no awareness around the nervous system and how it can support us with regards to like our connection with source, or, you know, feeling connected to each other, or just for our overall health and well-being. Like years ago, they used to give electric shock therapy to people through their nervous system when they were
we still carry that then. That's cool.
This is, yeah, exactly. So this is also a generational trauma that is locked into our nervous system. And this is where, you know, women would feel suppressed for speaking out about things, because a lot of, you know, sometimes if you feel like you can't articulate things, it could be something like, obviously we would have had a collective trauma in Ireland of through the Catholic Church of not being able to express ourselves, and
the collective pain body.
yeah. It's so interesting to see that would have like impacted all of us. And even when, you know, not able to express your emotions, like men find it very hard to express their emotions. Why is that? As children, they weren't allowed to be seen or heard. They were told that they had to behave a certain way. So yeah,
Just realizing I should have had this here the whole time because I'm talking like this. But yeah, no, like there was something you were saying there about, it was basically my point, but then you put it in such a striking way that I was like, whoa, this is what I was doing. It's like you're living out.
For self-fulfilled prophecy.
Yeah, but it's almost like I didn't realize that I was repeating even like near, like not even like really past like generational stuff, like recent enough in my own choice of partners and my own choice of everything, and how I kind of, the role I took on, and like being, because I would be quite, I guess, dominant personality type. I don't really know how else to describe it. Like I wouldn't be very passive, say. So I think I noticed a lot of like my relationship choices, I was becoming the passive person, and it wasn't out of choice. I think it was out of like subconscious being like, this is how I've seen the male, female, like, you know, the conventional like relationship dynamic of the past, especially in Catholic Ireland, dynamic play out. So I was like, this is the role that I just have to put up with. And it's like, no, surely like I can find someone that might like will be compatible with me, and I won't have to intrinsically change who I am.
Yes.
Although sometimes I do question like who I just am intrinsically at my core if I didn't have all this stuff, this baggage. Like we all have our baggage, right?
Yeah.
And I don't actually know if I were, this is something I've always struggled with, if being completely frank, is like, who am I minus all this stuff that I carry? Because I think a lot of the time up until like last year, I really over-identified with that baggage. And like, that's what I mean by pain body. That's why I really resonate with that like concept and what it talks about, because I identified so much with it that I was so scared to let go of it, because then who was I without it?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so that's why, like now, the last year I talk about like my life unraveling, because I mean that in the most deep sense, like everything I strip back, and I'm still trying to figure out who minus all that I am. So that's why like my own, even my coaching business, it's so subject to change, like the services that I'm going to be offering, because it's going to be based on what like really makes me tick. And like this stuff, for example, really makes me tick.
Yeah.
And like I love it. So I do want to see how I can maybe integrate it more, so I can help more people the way I am currently helping myself. Like I still have a lot to do, and you're going to hopefully help me with the Reiki, because I clearly need my brain to be unlocked. Like you said, like that sounds so cool.
I honestly couldn't believe it. And my mom was like, I'm just practicing, relax. And I was like,
because I've heard that. It's like you're not even touching them, because Morla Health One would have talked about this before, and it's like, how does that work?
yeah, it's so, because basically
Like you're not touching me, but you're like touching my soul.
yeah, it's amazing. It really is. So like I tend to touch people. It really depends. Like lately in my sessions over the last year, I've been doing different things, and obviously it's a remembrance of something from maybe a past life. But when you're working with Reiki, it's universal life force energy. So you are connecting to this universal life force energy, and I am the vessel for it. So basically this flows through and comes out through the hands, and you can actually send it through your eyes as well. There's so many different ways to do it, just with intention. Like when you have the intention, your intention is so powerful. And you can pick up on where there's blockages in the body, what energy needs to shift. I just tend to stand back and allow the energy to flow and do its work. And then I also invite in whoever has passed to support in the healing as well, because in the psychic medium sessions that I've been doing, the loved ones have been stepping forward and actually channeling through a different energy healing, which is like mental. Like, so this is also a new thing that has come in as I've deepened into my own trauma work, because the more trauma I've released, the more I've worked on myself, the more I've been able to embody more light and be able to access this, which is accessible for everybody.
Because that's the thing. It's like I never want to come across or like kind of set out to be perceived as being like fully healed, right? Because I do think it's like you said about nervous system work, like there's so much, especially, I'm not only know so much about your story, but especially in my case, from my own knowledge of my own story, is that like I spent 23 and a half years of my life living and like holding on to all that, you know, emotional baggage, and that like manifested in like chronic stress and trauma in my body and my nervous system. And it takes probably just as much time to really undo that and like strip it back. And I don't know if there'll ever be a point in time when I'm like, I'm 100% healed.
Yeah, it's
like,
definitely
let's
a
be
process.
real.
It's
like,
a process.
There's always going to be little triggers that come up, and it's about how you respond to them.
Totally.
That's what I'm trying to work on. Is like, I'm still, as a highly sensitive person, feel like really deeply, like I've said this before in my stories, and people actually reached out about it, being like, thank you so much for sharing this, because I don't think a lot of people speak about it. It's like, I experience really high highs, but then when the lows are, they're pretty low. Like, so it's like that type of stuff. Like, I'm trying to work on, like, you know, increasing my resiliency to the roller coaster of life. And I think that is primarily through nervous system work. It's like, you know, being there for yourself when you're feeling those lows. It's like
reparenting yourself. It really is. There's an aspect of reparenting there, because when you think about it, if our parents and the parents before them and, you know, grandparents, they would have experienced a lot of trauma with war and, you know, obviously the Catholic Church, all of that is trauma. And they wouldn't have received maybe the love or the safety that they needed when they were growing up. So they parent us to the extent of the love and, you know, safety that they would have received. And also we take on their beliefs and their experiences as well. So when we're unwinding from like 7 generations back. So like this journey is all about having patience and compassion with yourself. And I know so many times when I was doing the work and I was like, what, am I not fucking done yet? You know, like
it's like, surely.
Yeah, and the same, you know, you'll realize then your progress when you start to reflect back on your experiences and notice how you handled a particular stressor. Or you'll be given the same situation, life will throw you the same situation through a different person, and you'll respond to it completely different. And
That's
you'll go,
literally
wow.
happened to me recently.
Yeah, you'll go, wow, I've come on a lot, you know.
But then I wonder, right, so this, we can't get too much into this because we're running out of time, but like going back to the attachment thing, is like, so I would have been like an anxious attachment person in the past, right? So like would have been, because of like fear of abandonment and stuff, would have like actively tried to like make people not leave, and that with that comes like the anxious attachment style, right? Then recently, in similar situations that would have played out in the previous few years, I've gone the other extreme, I think, and I'm worried that I'm like just reverting to another suboptimal attachment style, which is avoidant. I don't know if you've heard of that before. And it's like, well, now my guard is up, I'm just gonna keep that up now. So it's like, I feel like it's so easy to flip-flop between the two until eventually you do find that secure, healthy medium where it's like, I don't know, you don't need validation from anyone else, but equally you know what you're worth. I don't know.
And I suppose with that, the only way that you can come into that optimal balance that you're looking for is by giving yourself what you need from the external environment. So if you're looking for somebody who wants to give you safety and love and compassion, you have to give it to yourself first, or else you won't even want to accept it from the other people, because you don't feel worthy of it. And it's all about giving yourself the unconditional love so that you can attract whatever it is that you desire. So like if you've had an experience that has created an anxious attachment and then you flip the other way, you're feeling maybe a lack of safety and a lack of love. So how do you bring that back into a baseline where you're attracting what you want? You have to give it to yourself first. As within, so without, you know, and as above, so below. So it's all, you know, interconnected. Everything is interconnected.
The universe.
Yeah. And you will start to see as well, like I have noticed such
My mind is blown now. Like,
I've noticed such a shift in my life since I started working on myself. Like friendship group changed, environment changed, opportunities coming up out of nowhere, like things that I wrote down in my journal 3 years ago that I'm like, here, what the fuck, this is actually happening, you know?
I love reflecting.
But what I did notice is that a shit ton of stuff came up to be seen so that I could get to that point. So like all the limiting beliefs, all the self-worth issues, all the lack of acceptance, all the lack of love for myself, the inner critic, all of that needed to be addressed so that I could actually come into that state of, you know, self-acceptance, love and joy, really, because that's what and peace. Like I've never felt so much peace now.
Like
yeah.
No, because honestly, that's what I'm experiencing a lot of lately. It's like and that's what I aspire is. It's just that like happy balance between the highs and the lows. It's just peace, and that's what I want in a partner. When that time comes, like I don't actually want one right now. Emotionally unavailable, but when that happens, I don't want like. This is the trauma bond stuff that there's just not enough time, guys. We need to talk about a lot of stuff. But trauma bond stuff like taught me a lot about like I don't want that. You know, they talk about the spark and the chemistry, and like I do obviously want that to a certain extent, but with that usually becomes like this toxic like dance between egos, okay? And that's not what I want anymore. I just want like peace, loving, like caring environment. People just want the best for each other and stability and work through your shit together. Like none of this like this is what I mean. I don't want a man who doesn't do their healing work.
Yeah.
That is so
too.
2022.
Me too. I'm calling in the highest divine masculine here right now.
Oh yeah. Give some of that. Right. On that note, we got to wrap up. But thank you so much for coming on. Genuinely, we're going to just have to do a round 2 eventually because
we never even spoke about the hurricane.
lads, the story. Yeah, we don't have time.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't have time, but the round 2.
Yeah.
And we'll tap out now.
Yeah.
Right. We'll talk about all the bits and bobs that I know you guys will enjoy just as much as me because I find this stuff so fascinating.
It's limitless.
Could literally stay here all day, but alas, we have check-in calls to get to. So I'm going to go. But thank you guys so much for listening. If you don't already, please do follow this pod and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss out any episodes going forward. Thanks so much again, Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, bye.